Now it is time for our weekly political panel. Joining me now live is Ebony Bennett from the Australia Institute and Renee Gorman from the Institute of Public Affairs. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Let's get straight into it. Ebony, we'll start with you. The Prime Minister says it's better the JobKeeper program was overcalculated than undercalculated. He says Treasury thought the initial impact of COVID-19 would actually be worse than what they had thought previously. Is this a good thing or a bad blunder, do you think?
It is a bad blunder, and blunder's probably significantly understating it. The economic advice for recessions is go hard, go early and go households. And here we discover that the government announced hard and announced early, but there's $60 billion of stimulus money that everyone thought was circulating in the economy that is missing. So that is absolutely enormous. It's half the size approximately of the total JobKeeper scheme. And ultimately the reason why the government put this in place, why it has implemented what it bragged about being something like $200 billion worth of fiscal measures in the first place, they judged was required, and because it buys a lower rate of unemployment. So the fact that this was undersubscribed isn't anything to brag about, particularly when we've missed out on almost 1 million casuals, many migrant workers, almost the whole of the university sector, local council workers. There are huge numbers of people at the moment who are really struggling because they can't access this scheme, and there is now absolutely no excuse why they couldn't be included in this scheme. The government said, we've got to draw the line somewhere. Well, it turns out they drew the line, only halfway to the finish line here, and I think it's of utmost importance for the economy that they do consider extending JobKeeper now that we've discovered this enormous error. And to be clear, the error happened way before anyone thought of a form. The $130 billion figure was announced well before anyone even designed a form. Big problems here.
Renee, your thoughts? Should the Treasurer face the Senate's COVID-19 committee as Labor is pushing for?
I think there definitely is an argument there, and this is definitely very embarrassing for the government and is only going to do more to exacerbate Australians' frustration right now. People are losing their jobs, they're losing their businesses, they're losing their livelihoods, and the guys in charge can't even get the numbers right. I can only imagine that this is not going to be favourable for most Australians hearing this right now. And at the end of the day, it's average Australians who are going to clean up this mess. A lot of people are looking to the government right now for solutions, but at the end of the day, it's average Australians, average hard-working Australians who are going to fix this mess. And the way we do that is by unleashing the prosperity of the free market. And the government's job is to get the numbers out of the way so we can fix this.
What about Joel Fitzgibbon this week? He attacked the government's call for an internationally supported inquiry into the origins of the pandemic. Ebony, he effectively broke ranks with his Labor colleagues here. Do you think he was right to step in?
Well, I think he's got a point here, and obviously the way that the Australian government has handled this has had huge ramifications, in particularly for our agricultural sector, because of a diplomatic blowback, because we didn't handle it effectively in the first place. But I think Joel Fitzgibbon's comments are far less damaging than the contributions of many coalition members and senators. George Christensen talking about taking back the port of Darwin from the Chinese authorities who own it, and Concetta Fierravanti-Wells talking about demanding reparations. Those contributions I think have been very damaging from the backbench. So, we have to find a diplomatic way out of this, and possibly having, people contributing who aren't the very most senior levels of the Australian government isn't helping. But this is an issue that we are going to have to work out how we're going to handle this relationship with China in the long run. We have deep links and connections with China going back many decades now, and obviously China is much more muscular in its approach to trade as well as international security approaches at the moment, and we have to figure out how we're going to deal with it, because if we can't find a diplomatic solution, then either we're going to find ourselves having more trade sanctions and other things applied to us in the future. But absolutely effective diplomacy is the only way out of this.
Renee, your thoughts? I mean, diplomacy is the best way forward. Do you think then that Mr Fitzgibbon is particularly unhelpful?
I have to admit that I found Joel Fitzgibbon's comments disappointing and a little bit disturbing, especially since I've generally had a little bit more time for Joel Fitzgibbon as one of the few Labor Party's members left who will defend working class jobs in the resource sector. But just because China is a very good partner when it comes to resources doesn't mean that Joel Fitzgibbon should be looking at, kissing the ring of the CCP right now. A lot of people have suffered because of the CCP, and I think it's really good that Australia and the US are taking a very clear and hard line that an investigation has to start, because a lot of people had suffered.
Absolutely. I'm sure there's a lot of people that do want answers. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. We do need to go to a press conference. Ebony Bennett and Renee Gorman, pleasure to speak with you both. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are